on to the ACT. So this is developed by the American College Testing, and this was introduced in 1959 as a substitute for the SAT. So SAT is actually almost 100 years old now, and the ACT is about 75 years old now. Widely accepted by U.S. colleges and universities. Between the ACT and SAT, they are accepted equally. There is no preference from the colleges and universities for which test. For international schools, the SAT is still preferred. The ACT is scored on a scale of 1 to 36, and there are 4 sections. So English, math, reading, and science, and they're worth 25% each. So one big difference between the SAT and ACT will be English and reading would be the English section of the SAT and worth 50%, and here it is worth 50%, but math is only worth 25% here, whereas on the SAT it is 50%. There is an optional essay that is worth 12 points. It is scored separately and not required. There's no penalty for wrong answers, so guessing is encouraged. I did get a question. I'll actually get to that a little bit later. And the current ACT fee is $68 with an optional $25 essay fee. I think I skipped over the SAT pricing, which is again $68, so same pricing. ACT English. So 75 questions in 45 minutes. If you remember, the SAT was over a minute per question. You will have less than a minute per question. This will test grammar, punctuation, sentence structure, and rhetorical skills. So this is mainly a focus on grammar and vocabulary. ACT Math, 60 questions in 60 minutes. Again, you will have less time per question. A calculator is allowed. Please note, all of the questions will be multiple choice, so no free response and also no formulas provided. The breakdown of the questions will be algebra, which includes algebra 2, geometry, and trigonometry. ACT Reading, 40 questions in 35 minutes, and there are only 4 passages total with 750 words maximum length. So they are much longer than the SAT, about 5 times the length, and you will have 8 to 10 questions per passage. And then you will be answering the same style of questions, but again, it will be in a single passage. One thing to keep in mind for students is that in the ACT reading and in the past SAT, when they have the longer passages, if a student struggles understanding a passage, they will struggle with multiple questions. Whereas now with the SAT, if the students don't understand a passage, they will only struggle with one question. So that is something to keep in mind. ACT Science, this catches a lot of people off guard. This is actually not a testing of knowledge in things like biology, physics, or chemistry. It is just understanding provided information. So it is understanding data. Most of the questions are based on a scientific text and then things like graphs and charts and then answering those questions. These style of questions are actually in the SAT in both the math and English sections. ACT Writing, which is again optional. It's a 40-minute. You will have a single prompt and write an essay following that prompt. Only 3 colleges and universities in the entire US require the ACT writing. This is Martin Luther College, Sophia University, and the US Military Academy, better known as West Point. So if you are not applying to any of these schools, you are not required to take the writing, and the vast majority of students do not. I only really recommend it for students who are gifted in writing because it can help them stand out. But if a student is not comfortable with it, they do not need to take it. ACT percentiles, 36 is a perfect score technically. This to get a 36 does not mean you have to miss 0 questions. You can get a 36 missing some questions. Anywhere between 1 and 4 questions missed could lead to a 36. Please note that for the ACT and SAT, they are not really graded on a curve, but they are balanced out with the test takers of that session. So whatever students took the session in March for the SAT, the scores will be somewhat balanced out. So in some cases, students will need to miss 0 questions for a perfect score. In some cases, they can miss some. So please keep that in mind. And again, the percentiles will be less than 1 in 100 students will get a 36. And 1 or 2 students in 100. Oh, I will answer that as well. So 1 or 2 students out of 100 will get 34 to 35 and so forth. This is the average of the scores.